Hi, I'm Hal Roberts. This is Bridge City News. Here's some of the top stories we've been following. A weekend shooting at a tent encampment in Lethbridge leads to one man being taken to hospital and another being arrested. The Alberta government announced some much-needed help for children under the age of 12 who've been suffering with cystic fibrosis. And we hear from Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and a number of CPC leadership candidates who've been taking part in festivities at the Calgary Stampede.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. Lethbridge police have arrested a 37-year-old man in connection with an incident where another man was shot Sunday night at a tent encampment. BCN's Naveen Day was on the scene and has the details for us.
It was shortly after 8 p.m. on Sunday night when police responded to a report of a shooting at this tent encampment, which is located along the 500 block of Stafford Drive South. Upon arrival, a 33-year-old man was located with a gunshot wound. A bystander named CJ tells us what he witnessed.
I thought it sounded like a pellet gun or something, and I had a young lady run over to the tents over here and said her boyfriend was shot. I happen to know the guy, went over there and sat with him until the ambulance came, and he was shot in the leg, lots of pain. Seemed to be a .22 caliber rifle.
Lethbridge Police Services investigation determined the two males who are both residents of the encampment were involved in a verbal altercation that resulted in the victim being shot before the subject fled the scene. He was arrested without incident a short time later. The victim was transported to hospital by EMS and has since been released. LPS adds, as this was a targeted incident between two individuals known to each other, they say there is no evidence to suggest ongoing risk to the general public.
These incidents have occurred not just in encampments over the last years, right? There's firearms-related incidents in all areas of the city. And, you know, what I would say to the public is that we're out there, we're being as proactive as we can with the resources we have. We live in this community too, and our kids go to the same schools, etc. So we're concerned about public safety as well, and we're doing all we can to ensure that public safety. And you know, at times we rely on other community partners as well. And you know, we're just going to continue to do that.
The area has since been evacuated by Lethbridge Police, and notice has been posted that the encampment site will be torn down. For Bridge City News, I'm Naveen Day.
Lethbridge police say they issued a total of 115 tickets during Street Machine Weekend over the weekend in our city. Officials say the majority of tickets were issued for stunting and equipment violations. There were also 3 criminal code charges, 8 warrants executed, and 3 vehicles towed because of people were drinking and driving. Street Machine Weekend is an annual event put on by the Street Wheelers Car Club, which sees hundreds of classic cars converge in our city. From Mustangs to Camaros and Mopars, they were all here. And for the show and shine this weekend, thousands of people showed up at Galt Gardens to see around 700 vehicles on display. Some beautiful cars. Lethbridge police have charged 2 people in connection with mail theft. Last week, police arrested a man and a woman. 21-year-old Erzabet Catherine Pesty and 51-year-old Benjamin Howard Starr face numerous charges, including possession of stolen mail, stolen credit cards, break and enter, and possession of stolen identity documents. Police say a majority of the incidents occurred in subdivisions located in the Uplands and Varsity Village. Officials say between May and July 6th, there were 19 thefts from community mailboxes here in our city. This week's forecast is calling for lots of heat and temperatures expected to rise into the 30s. Now that heat can pose risks for many people and also lead to heat-related illnesses. The city says their biggest concern right now is for those who don't have access to appropriate shelter where there is air conditioning.
People with underlying health ailments can be affected adversely by extreme heat or extreme temperature swings. We opened the spray parks, we had the park and ride was open, and then also some of our stakeholders, they opened their doors as well. And we have water going around town and people going around and advising the vulnerable population and checking for signs of heat stress or anything else.
It's 32 degrees for 2 or more days with an evening temperature of no less than 16 degrees. So those would be the temperatures where we would start to really activate and look and respond more I guess, as required throughout those events. We have a number of opportunities, a number of partners, stakeholders within the community that help take care of each and every one of us. We have plans through our emergency management plan should we reach extreme temperatures, or whether that is hot or cold.
Some of the places locals can seek cooler shelter include the Lethbridge Soup Kitchen, Streets Alive, and the YWCA Harbour House. The University of Lethbridge is getting a new turf at the community stadium, consisting of a new product from Field Turf Canada. The existing groundwork, which was laid at the stadium for the last 12 years, was in dire need of replacement after it was starting to tear up. Teams will soon get to play on about £1 million, over 453,000 kilograms of infill, ultimately making the field much better for players.
With this turf system, we're using our Field Turf Core fiber, which is the thickest, strongest fiber that we've ever developed in our history. It's a FIFA Quality Pro certified product. It's literally at the highest end of the spectrum. So what you see here is at the top end of the spectrum in terms of quality of turf fields in existence today.
I think our soccer players for sure will feel like they're playing on more of a natural turf surface than the previous surface. Rugby and football will notice probably it's a little bit softer on the impact as well too, and the bounce of the ball will certainly be different, on kicks and that sort of thing. So we feel that the old system, while it served us well for 12 years, was due for the upgrade, and I think the athletes and our constituent users are really going to enjoy this field.
The cost of this project is just over $900,000, with the cost being shared between the university and the city. The Alberta government announced more support for children with cystic fibrosis. Health officials say kids aged 6 to 11 can now have access to the drug Trikafta, which was previously only available to kids 12 and older. Alberta Health Minister Jason Copping says the province wanted to make this drug available to more Albertans as soon as possible.
Our government has streamlined its processes so this drug could be prescribed sooner. Now that regulatory approvals and health technology assessments have been completed by the Canadian Agency for Drugs and Technologies in Health, we can expand access to young Albertans. And once again, Alberta government is leading the way by making these changes as soon as possible. Today's announcement is part of our efforts to provide Albertans with evidence-based, effective medications that can improve their health.
You not only listened to our stories, but you fully understood that Albertans with CF should not have to get sicker before being allowed a chance to access a life-changing medication and have a healthier and longer life. In what can be a slow and very complex approval process, sometimes taking years, the speed of the approval and funding of Trikafta is a great example of how the system can work. We know that when the next big development comes, whether it's another expansion of Trikafta, new medicine for the 10% of CF patients that remain without effective medication, or one day a cure, that we have support for our community here in Alberta.
The province also announced that September 1st will be officially recognized as Alberta Day to celebrate our province's cultural heritage and its unique place in Confederation. On September 1st, way back in 1905, the Alberta Act came into effect, formally establishing the province of Alberta. Premier Jason Kenney says Alberta Day won't be a statutory holiday, but will recognize Alberta's unique culture and spirit.
We rightfully celebrate Canada Day. It's time that we also celebrated this place we call home.
No, it's not a statutory holiday, but because we have Labor Day proximate, right? Labor Day, depending on the year, it might sometimes be right around there. So no, we already have a statutory holiday, and we can. But this is about taking one special day of the year, setting it aside, and actually celebrating this province.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau also made an appearance at the Calgary Stampede over the weekend. The Prime Minister attended a pancake breakfast, visited the grounds, and spoke at a Liberal fundraiser.
These 10 days are incredibly important in terms of tourism and just the community building that we're able to do with Stampede. So it was great to talk to the Prime Minister and, the shared responsibility we have for things like this. We had a great conversation about the vibe that he's feeling in the city, his words. So it's really good to make sure that the federal government is aware that Calgary is in good shape.
Well, it's like a celebrity moment. It's cool. Like, it was cool to see him, right? Like, I didn't expect him in Calgary, to be honest. Not in Stampede, absolutely not. Oh, it's mad crowded today. But it's fun. It's my first Stampede, so it's a cool time. We weren't expecting these, so many people, but it's awesome to be here, and we're just enjoying the food, the sights, the events, things to do.
PM Trudeau says it's very important to attend this year's Calgary Stampede to celebrate the greatest outdoor show on earth with Albertans.
I know Stampede is an extraordinary time for people coming across the country, gathering to celebrate, gathering to enjoy pancakes and celebrate everything about Calgary in the West. And I'm just incredibly excited to be here. We've been working hard for you, but you've all been working hard as well. We've had a tough couple of years where people have had to pull together and make it through. And we really saw the strength of community, Canadians leaning on each other, being there for each other. It's all about. And we're facing more challenges with the war in Ukraine, with the global inflation crisis. But at the same time, we're seeing it time and time again, Canadians stepping up to be there for each other.
Conservative Party of Canada leadership frontrunner Pierre Poilievre returned to his hometown of Calgary for the Stampede festivities. He was hoping to drum up even more support for his campaign. He says he wants to give Canadians control back of their lives.
Lately, we haven't seen a lot of freedom in this country. People feel like they're losing control of their lives. It could be the 14-year-old girl suffering from depression, or the small businessman put out of his business by 2 years of lockdowns, or the person who's lost his job because of a personal medical decision, the trucker who was denied the opportunity to keep delivering our goods just because he did not get vaccinated. Yes, that's the trucker. The single mom skipping meals so her kids don't have to, or the 35-year-old living in mom's basement because he can't afford a house of his own.
CPC leadership candidates Leslyn Lewis and Jean Charest also attended a Stampede event, trying to get more Conservative members to vote for them.
Provinces like Alberta are tired of the Ottawa knows best mentality. We have the third largest accessible oil reserves on this planet, and we leave it untapped. For every single job in the oil and gas sector, there are 7 splinter jobs. We could be creating wealth in this country and bringing our supply chains home and prospering this nation, and that's what we need to do by building pipelines.
It isn't just about us, and it's not just about the people in this room. And I'm running in this leadership race because the common thread of my whole political career has been the idea of Canada.
Lindsay Clark has been the mayor of Medicine Hat, Alberta since last fall. Clark says being the mayor of the gas city has had its fair share of challenges. She also says a long-term plan is needed in helping those with mental health issues coming out of the pandemic. She was specifically referring to some of the cases of young men who committed suicide in Medicine Hat last year.
It's not something that's going to be solved overnight. It's a tragic situation, and it probably in part has to do with economic factors. COVID saw a lot of people in isolation. It's not one thing, and I think there's no one-size-fits-all solution, but we will continue to work with our community partners, facilitating, empowering, bringing them together, because that's something that no community wants to see.
Make sure you watch the full interview with BCN's Naveen Day and Medicine Hat Mayor Lindsay Clark coming up later in our broadcast. Edmonton's Sacred Heart Church of the First People is preparing for a visit by the Pope later this month. Pope Francis will be meeting with members of the Catholic Church as part of his 6-day Canadian tour. The church has both Indigenous and settler members who pray together using symbols, music, and rituals that are meaningful to Indigenous cultures.
Exciting, very exciting. It's a dream we hope would become reality. And once again, we thank our priest for taking the initiative.
We've been working so hard attending to all the details of the renovations, and with many of the things that arose last year, that we're not sure what we feel. We're just kind of trying to respond to all these new challenges, and they're coming very fast, as best we can with big hearts, and trying to really be inclusive as we do so.
Lake Louise RCMP say a man has died after falling off of Mount Temple. Police said shortly before noon on Saturday, they were notified that the man, who was with a group of experienced hikers, had lost his footing while slipping on a patch of snow and ice. With the assistance of a Parks Canada helicopter, his body was located around 3,300 feet from the initial site of the fall. There was a tragic end in the search of a 5-year-old boy in northern Saskatchewan. RCMP say Frank Young was found dead in the river on Red Earth Cree Nation, near the location where he was originally reported missing on April the 19th. Police say there's no indication of suspicious circumstances at this point of the investigation, which is being conducted in partnership with the Saskatchewan Coroner Service, and it's still in its early stages. Young was last seen at a playground near his home. The body of Japan's former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe was displayed at a Tokyo temple on Monday. Abe was assassinated on Friday by a man emerging from the crowd wielding a homemade firearm.
In his time in office, Prime Minister Abe did more than anyone to elevate the relationship between the United States and Japan to new heights.
Police in South Africa say a shooting at a tavern in Johannesburg's Soweto Township has killed 15 people and left others in critical condition. The shooting comes 2 weeks after 21 teenagers were found dead in a tavern in the city of East London.
Crime has defeated our systems. We need to just rise from the ashes, and the only way to rise is to come together with the people of South Africa to fight crime.
South Africa's president said the deaths of the 21 teenagers in a nightclub tragedy is a serious crime, and that South African officials must increase steps to prevent alcohol from being illegally sold to youths.
There is blame that has to be laid. And I'm able to say, yes, from national government, there is blame on us. Provincial government, local government, the police, the taverners, the tavern owners, and all that. There is blame. And blame must be laid at the feet of those who are making money of the dreams and the lives of young people of South Africa by breaking the law and selling alcohol to underage children.
At least 15 people were killed on Sunday when a Russian rocket hit an apartment building in a small eastern Ukrainian town. Officials added that more than 20 people may still be trapped inside of the rubble.
И сейчас нам говорят, что маленький ребенок погиб. А здесь была одна семья с маленьким ребенком. Больше их не было. Ирина и маленький ребенок, 9 лет. Я не знаю. И вот сейчас мы пришли сейчас искать своих. Кто выехал, кого вывезли, как, где, что. Я не знаю.
The deadly 4th of July shooting rampage located just outside of Chicago, Illinois, has some people contemplating leaving the United States. Locals cheered as prosecutors leveled 7 charges of first-degree murder against the alleged shooter.
These are just the first of many charges that will be filed against Mr. Crimo. I want to emphasize that. There will be more charges. Separate from these red flag laws, which are very powerful in Illinois, we should also ban assault weapons in Illinois.
I don't like this world that we live in at all. I have serious concerns about where we've been, where we're going. And quite honestly, I have contemplated several times recently leaving this country.
Well, we had a very warm start to the work week here in Lethbridge, and that trend should continue for much of southwestern Alberta. Complete weather details are coming up. Well, we enjoyed lots of sunshine and warm temperatures across much of southwestern Alberta again today. Tonight, it should be mainly clear with a low near 14. Tuesday, mainly sunny with a high expected near 33. Wednesday, hot again with a daytime high near 31. Cooling off slightly under a partly cloudy sky on Thursday with a high of only 23. Heating up again on Friday with a high near 30. A nice hot weekend is shaping up as well. Sunny and 35 degrees on Saturday, sunshine and 32 for Sunday. Now the average high for this time of year is 25 degrees with an average low of 10. The record high was 35 degrees set back in 2002. The record low was only 3 degrees in 1997. The sun rose at 5:36 and set at 9:38. Let's see how Tuesday's shaping up across the country now. It should be mainly sunny and 24 in Victoria. Sunshine and 23 is on tap for Vancouver. Just a few clouds and 32 degrees for Edmonton. Sunny and 30 degrees for Calgary. Sunshine and 30 as well for Regina. Even hotter with 32 expected in Saskatoon on Tuesday. In Winnipeg, it should be partly cloudy with a high near 25. In the central part of the country, there's a good chance of showers developing at 26 in Toronto. Thunder showers at 25 degrees for both Ottawa and Montreal. In Atlantic Canada, expect sun mixed with cloud and a high of 27 in Fredericton. Mainly sunny and 25 degrees in Halifax. Lots of sunshine at 26 for Charlottetown. And in St. John's, Newfoundland, expect a mainly cloudy day with a high near 24 degrees on Tuesday. A Canadian small business group is calling on provincial and federal governments to temporarily suspend or lower fuel taxes like we have here in Alberta. The Canadian Federation of Independent Business says record high gas prices, supply chain and labor issues have pushed the cost of doing business through the roof. It says higher transportation and fuel costs have driven 92% of small businesses to increase prices in the past year. Our country's industry minister was meeting with the head of Rogers Communications on Monday. It followed last week's massive outage that paralyzed the company's network. Minister François-Philippe Champagne wanted to meet with Rogers executives to discuss the importance of improving Canada's networks. The widespread Rogers service outage began on Friday and lasted at least 15 hours, knocking out access to many healthcare, banking, and law enforcement services. Via Rail narrowly avoided the prospect of immediately suspending services across Canada when a strike deadline was extended this afternoon. Unifor issued a 72-hour notice to the national rail carrier on Friday, indicating that its 2,400 employees were prepared to walk off the job at 12:01 a.m. on Monday. But the union issued a later statement saying the deadline was pushed to 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Earlier today, Via Rail issued its own statement saying it is committed to reaching a fair and reasonable agreement. Now, here's a look at today's markets. The TSX was down 206 points on the day to finish at 18,816. The Dow was down 164 points to 31,173. The S&P 500 was down 44 points to 3854. And the Nasdaq was down 262 on the day to 11,372. West Texas Intermediate Oil was down $1.43 to 103.36 U.S. per barrel. Natural gas was up 49 cents to 6.52 U.S. Gold was even on the day at 17.3396 U.S. an ounce, and silver was down a cent to 19.12 U.S. an ounce. Feed wheat is at $12.51 per bushel, barley is at $8.70, canola is at $18.89, and corn is at $11.05 per bushel. Live cattle August contract was up $2.20 to 136.15. Feeder cattle August contract was up $3.15 to 173.50, and lean hogs July contract was up 30 cents to 113.15. The Canadian dollar was even over the past 24 hours at 76.89 U.S. Recapping one of our top stories, a 37-year-old man was arrested in connection with a shooting at a tent encampment in Lethbridge on Sunday night. Just after 8 p.m., police responded to a report of a shooting on Stafford Drive South. When they arrived, they located a 33-year-old man with a gunshot wound to his leg. He was taken to hospital, treated, and released. The firearm used in the attack has not yet been recovered. Charges and the name of the suspect have not yet been released. A new report says American money committed to Ukraine has already exceeded the cost of the first 5 years of the war with the Taliban in Afghanistan many years ago. The United States is promising even more funding, which, according to our foreign affairs expert Lisa Daftari, does not sit well with many people. She'll have details for us in just a moment.
Here's your Bridge City News community calendar. The live theater troupe Hootenanny returns to Galt Gardens with the Play the Junk show. Two oddball junk collectors spend their days sorting through junk that no one wants. It's hard work but so much fun as their imaginations embark on exciting adventures with the junk that they've called so good. Come out and enjoy this live performance every Wednesday to Saturday at 10:30 a.m. at Galt Gardens from now until July 30th. For more information, visit newwesttheater.com/hootenanny. Explore the exciting and delicious downtown food scene at Foodie Fest on Tuesday, July 26th. Food trucks will gather at Galt Gardens with other amazing opportunities to enjoy the many downtown restaurants with free samples. Plus, select stores will also be open late for shopping. It'll be great fun for everyone. For more information, visit Downtown Lethbridge BRZ Facebook page. And that's your Bridge City News Community Calendar.
In a shocking move, the U.S. State Department said it would not support violent opposition toward the Taliban government. The response by government officials followed a very successful ambush by the National Resistance Front of Afghanistan against Taliban fighters in the northern part of Afghanistan. To talk about this in more detail is our foreign affairs expert Lisa Daftari, who joins us once again from Los Angeles. Lisa, the Taliban is considered a terrorist organization. Is this not a good thing?
You would think so, but when you look at the optics here, not only is the State Department saying that the Afghan resistance forces should not fight against the Taliban and that they don't support it, they also said that they hope that other countries don't support this. It's crazy. Let's start with that. The fact that these are either from the former government and military personnel, or they are ordinary Afghan civilians, and they're basically freedom fighters, and they were able to claim victory in a small province. And when this was publicized, we reached out from the foreign desk to the State Department, and their response was, we don't support this. We actually condemn this, and we hope that other countries follow suit. Mind-boggling. But when you look at the optics, when you look at the other points here, the withdrawal from Afghanistan by the United States, we know that we had to leave. Did we have to leave the way that we did? Did we have to leave all of those millions and millions of dollars of military equipment and technology for the Taliban? Did we have to, since then, give them $1 billion in aid? It hasn't even been a year yet. Biden met with Taliban officials right after the earthquake last week and promised them more funding because of the earthquake. Now, will that money go for civilians and for the repair of infrastructure in the aftermath of the earthquake? I highly doubt it. It will go for more terrorism. Now, the aid that we give to the Taliban, it doesn't even come with a set of preconditions or maybe some suggestions. Let the women go to school. Stop using the money for terrorism. Let women come out of the house without a male escort or a chaperone. I mean, it is mind-boggling to think where the United States is standing on this issue. And again, on the heels of President Biden making his trip out to the Middle East to meet with our key allies, Israel and the Saudis. I mean, how does this look when they are begging the Iranians at the negotiating table on the one hand, giving the Taliban, a terror organization, billions of dollars to do what? Put it back into terrorism in the region. So it's always opposite day at the White House, recently. And, you just can't make this stuff up. It's mind-boggling.
Lisa, a Hamas chief and other senior officials of the Gaza ruling terror group said it was incumbent on the Palestinians to start looking to form more alliances with Russia, China, and Iran once the war between Ukraine and Russia is over. I would have thought that Hamas would have already strengthened ties with some of those countries already.
Exactly, Hal, and that assumption is absolutely correct, because they're getting funding by the Iran regime anyway. And when you look at the axis that they have created, the rogue nations of the world, it is Venezuela and Russia and China and North Korea, Iran. These are the countries that are banding together. Of course, China leading the pack. The Taliban have made nice with China. The Russians are making nice with China. Iran has made nice with China. And of course, why wouldn't the Palestinians then do the same? Now, this is both tongue-in-cheek and it is factual. Factual because, as I said, this is the alliance that they belong to at this point, right? And more tongue-in-cheek because they want to say to the United States, wait a minute, if you're going to be nice to Israel, if you're going to not take our side, because they banked on the assumption that the Biden administration would reverse everything that was done under the Trump administration. So obviously President Trump was extremely friendly with Israel. They moved the embassy to Jerusalem from Tel Aviv. They actually, they announced that the settlements agreements were actually legitimate, which was a great move. And obviously very, very friendly relations during that entire time. The Abraham Accords, of course, brought a whole new chapter to the Middle East and Israel's relationships with its neighbors. And then when the Biden administration came to power, we would think, well, they did a reverse on all foreign policy achievements of the Trump White House. And you would think, and they would believe that would be the same for the Palestinians. What they did do is reinstate aid to the Palestinians. They did not move the embassy. They did not renege on the Abraham Accords. So the Palestinians are kind of like, we expected more. We want more out of this. And to make this kind of announcement to say we're going to align ourselves with the bad guys, it's kind of to say to the White House, you better move before we find new friends. And, you know, it's to be expected. This is what a weak foreign policy leads to. And, you know, when you connect the dots, it all starts out from the White House podium.
A new report says American money committed to Ukraine, Lisa, has already exceeded the cost of the first 5 years of the Afghan war. Overall, the U.S. has promised at least $54 billion in spending related to the war. Now, direct military-related spending on the Ukraine war has reached around $8 billion, and the U.S. spent around, $7.4 billion in the first 5 wars in the fight against the Taliban?
Yes, a lot of numbers you threw out there, but yes, we are committed to this Ukraine war. And where is it going? I mean, what is the end result? I saw this meme on Instagram that perfectly said it. We have spent, in the United States, have spent 5 times the amount we would have spent securing our border, which was the wall that President Trump wanted to create. We have spent 5 times that amount to help Ukraine fortify its border. I mean, really let that sink in. And it's crazy to think that, we here are not prioritizing national security and also our regional security and putting money into a war that's not going anywhere. Just over the weekend, we pledged another $400 million. Secretary Blinken came out and said, we want to help the Ukrainians with another $400 million. So every day that they come out with another pledge of millions and millions of dollars. And again, to what end? We know that the Russians are advancing at a rate that the Ukrainians could never keep up with, regardless of how much money or military equipment we're providing them with. And again, to what end? Where will this all go? How will this all end?
Yeah, I'm just wondering again, like you and I've talked about in the past, if Ukraine President Zelensky and Russia President Putin will sit down and say, you know what, maybe we should have some sort of a compromise here, such as some of the Ukraine eastern states that Russia is so heavily involved in and they want to take over, so maybe annex some of that into Russia. I don't know. There are no easy answers at this point, but we do want to see peace and an end to the war soon.
Absolutely. And I will tell you, we're working on a story here at the Foreign Desk, it hasn't been published, but it will be today, about, Putin is now offering Russian citizenship to Ukrainians. And that will probably be the next step. And the question then becomes, is this the off-ramp? Is this the moment we've been waiting for where Russia comes in and says, listen, if you really want to see this come to an end, you want to have negotiations and some sort of concessions. I'm saying Ukrainians become Russians and we call it an end of the day. I mean, there may not be any other way out. And then we have interviewed Ukrainians who are for this. They actually believe that they'll be safer and well protected and, under the Russian flag. And that might be an option for them. Others obviously want to fight back and they're rolling up their sleeves and getting out there. And they do want to obviously maintain their Ukrainian identity. So we will have to see if this is an option, if it will happen, and if this may, in fact, be the best case scenario in this situation.
Lisa, Israel's prime minister called for peace with Saudi Arabia and normalized ties with Arab nations ahead of U.S. President Joe Biden's planned Middle Eastern trip this week. Now, Lisa, Biden will be the first American president to fly from Israel directly to Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, isn't that wonderful? It's really a telling moment on how far the Abraham Accords have brought us. Of course, Saudi Arabia is not signatory to the Accords just yet. That is the big godfather that everybody has been waiting for, meaning if Israel has been able to strike an accord with moderate Arab states, well, those Arab states probably did get the nod from Saudi Arabia. And now will Saudi Arabia publicly come and sign on to this accord. Now, behind the scenes, we know that Israel and Saudi Arabia are partnered up in many, many initiatives. Obviously, both of them having the interest of keeping Iran's influence at bay. And right now, this is where our foreign policy is going in terms of creating situations with nations and elements that have aligned interests. They may not be best of friends in every way, and you won't see Saudis really become Zionists or become pro-Israel in that way. But when it comes to really maintaining certain alignment for the region, they obviously are both on the same page. And now, ahead of President Biden's visit, they want to see if that is something that can come to fruition, a formal declaration of their relationship in adding Saudi Arabia to the accords, or at least making their relationship much more ironclad than it has been.
In a new report by Homeland Security in the United States, an average of 441 unaccompanied kids will cross the U.S.-Mexico into Border Patrol's custody every day this year. Now, the annual projected total is close to 161,000 children. The ongoing border crisis continues in your country.
Absolutely. This is a devastating story. And the reason why it's devastating, not only because the children come over and that they are risking their lives and have to deal with that anxiety and fear of traveling alone and making this very dangerous trip on their own. What happens when they get here is that it's illegal for the United States to send them back home if they don't belong to an adjacent nation, meaning if they're Canadian, they can get sent back home. If they're Mexican, they can get sent back home. But if they're traveling from Guatemala or Nicaragua or any of the other countries that are sending their children over through Mexico, they cannot be sent back. So then they become, kind of in no man's land until they have, a way of really absorbing these children into society or figuring out what to do with them. Look, this is the crisis that we do. I mean, we wrote about this at the Foreign Desk about how the Biden administration is trying to deal with this, but it is the Biden administration's rhetoric and position and lax position on immigration that has invited these illegals into the country, and again, in a way that is dangerous for them. Last week, 51 of them lost their lives in a truck. There have been so many of these accidents with the journey that they have to come. And again, traveling alone without their parents. What will be the future for these children when they are forced to face these kinds of obstacles at an early age?
Yeah, very, very sad. Lisa, police in Richmond say they thwarted a planned July 4th mass shooting after receiving a tip that led to arrests of 2 foreign nationals in the United States illegally and the seizure of multiple guns. Tell me more.
Yeah, this is a crazy story when you look at this. One of them had an expired visa and the other one had been thrown out twice, I think, from this country. I mean, it's crazy because we talk about how people don't come under the radar, but even when they do, in a case like this, it's like nothing has been done. So they got another chance. And what if this plot wasn't foiled? Then we would talk about guns. We wouldn't talk about the fact that we have an influx of people coming into this country, that we have no proper way of vetting them. I mean, we just talked about the southern border, but we also have an issue with people coming in from parts of the world where terrorists come from, and they want to get into this country, and they do falsify their paperwork. And even when they don't falsify their paperwork, we're not there to check it anyway. It's not like we can call the DMV in Syria or Iraq and say, hello, who is this person? Can we vet them? Can we figure out who they are before we let them into this country? And then we have no way of really keeping track of these individuals. It's really a wake-up call. I mean, again, we can get this right one time to foil a plot, but how about the next time when we are not able to get ahead of the terrorists? And this is one of those situations where really you have to look at the system and say it's flawed, it's broken. We need to really keep an eye and be more vigilant of the people coming into the country.
Lisa, a lot of social media platforms you and I have talked about in the past is simply full of trolls and a lot of bots. Now, there's one particular tweet that went viral on Twitter that's gotten a lot of people's attention. A number of people are saying that Anne Frank, who was hunted and killed by Nazis, had white privilege while she was alive. This is unbelievable.
I don't know, where do we even start on this, right? Okay, so genocide of an entire people, 6 million plus died. she being one of the victims as a 12-year-old girl who had to hide out in an attic, and she's called privileged. I mean, that's all you have to know. I mean, that's how crazy we are. We've spent our time as journalists, as political commentators, really just stating the obvious. I mean, there's no reason for us to be even having a conversation as to whether or not she had white privilege. We talk about how crazy it is that people are having the conversation. And this is what I find myself doing very often these days is really just stating the obvious and saying this is clown talk. This obviously doesn't need to be addressed, because anybody who's of sane mind knows that this is a crazy comment to make. But this is what we're dealing with. Again, this is what's going on the social media platforms. This is the conversation that's going on college campuses. This is what our children and young professionals are taught to fear when they are in the workplace, when they're in the college, when they are in the university classroom, to not even mention certain things that could allude to certain things. They have to be, ashamed of their gender if they're male, ashamed of their skin if they're white, ashamed of their religion if they're not X, Y, or Z. And it's just when will the pendulum swing back, Hal? That's what I want to know. We're talking about the pendulum going so far to one side that it will inevitably swing back, but we're waiting for that time because
praying that it'll come back real soon, Lisa.
Yes, we're losing our minds in the meantime.
Our foreign affairs expert, Lisa Daftari, thanks so much for joining us once again from Los Angeles.
My pleasure.
Medicine Hat has been known as the gas city, with sunny days and a low cost of living. These days, the Hat, as locals often call it, still has the natural gas wells and clear summer skies. It really is a gateway to Alberta and a destination for many. After the multi-year reign of former Mayor Ted Clugston, the people of the gas city elected Lindsay Clark last fall. Mayor Clark joins me now from her office in Medicine Hat. Mayor Clark, thank you for joining me today.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Now, since you've been in office, what have you heard from citizens regarding major priorities to tackle?
Well, we had the advantage of completing our strategic plan just after an election where we heard loud and clear from the community. That strategic plan reflects what we heard, and it's partly, making sure that we're taking care of our vulnerable populations within the city. That, obviously benefits our community as a whole, and I think a lot of communities are experiencing a lot of challenges right now. Economic challenges with mental health, and of course, the housing issues that are happening right now. And so we want to make sure that all of those issues are on the table, and we're progressing within our community with our community partners to address those issues. We also heard from our community that they wanted a better interface with the city. So we really want to focus on communication with our community, and of course within our organization as well, to make sure that, not only do people love living here, but if they're working for the City of Medicine Hat, they love working for the City of Medicine Hat too.
Great. Now, what are some of the obstacles that you see that maybe you didn't see before you took this position?
Well, the job of mayor is a big job, as is every councillor, and we're experiencing a very difficult time with the supply chain issues, inflation. I mean, that had started during the election, so we did have a sense of that, but I'm not sure that anyone could have predicted how prolonged that would be, and that's having an impact both on the city's finances with the cost of supplies and everything that a city needs to run, but also on the citizens of Medicine Hat. So we're simultaneously experiencing difficult time in our economy as inflation is going up, and the supply chain issues are making it difficult for some aspects of the economy to restart. So we're hoping to see at least the supply chain issues resolve in the next while here, and definitely hoping that the steps of the federal government regarding inflation have an impact.
Now, this is your first term as mayor, and you must have a great team around you. Do you feel that as a city administration, you and the city council have been achieving your goals so far? And what are some of the successes you have seen?
So we have already started some initiatives. So we directed administration to start putting together an environmental framework, which is an important aspect of moving forward, especially as a municipality that owns its own electric and gas utilities. De-risking carbon is a hot topic, and with the increasing cost of carbon, we're looking to make sure that we're in a really good position moving forward with our electric utility and gas utility. Also, we just completed our strategic plan, and that's very exciting because that provides a roadmap for what we want to accomplish over the next four years, like for our term, but also even beyond that. And certainly some of those projects are going to take a little longer than others, but you can't finish unless you start.
Absolutely. And along with having a strong city council, as mayor, how important are community groups in helping you accomplish the goals of the city?
Very important. Community groups play such an important role in a city accomplishing its goals. We have a very involved community, and one of the aspects of our strategic plan is to make sure that where the community can take a leadership role on resolving issues or making things happen, we want to make sure that we're facilitating and empowering those community groups. So we have an amazing housing community here. Our Medicine Hat Community Housing Society has been, in the news, very active, and we're grateful to have an excellent partnership with them. One other really cool example is our skateboard association in the city, and the work that they've done to make skateboarding a real community in Medicine Hat and fundraise to have integrated skate parks and a larger skate facility where we just had Beat the Heat competition at. It was just incredible. And it's just such a good example of how just empowering the people in your community to move forward with what they're passionate about can be so valuable.
Now, Mayor Clark, the city has had the new arena for several years now. Now that events are back on, does Co-op Place have a profitable future in your opinion?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we are hopeful that we are going to see an uptick in the cultural and artistic events that happen throughout the city. There's still a variety of restrictions across different municipalities, province, and states that are complicating entertainers trying to put together a tour circuit, but we are seeing good interest from entertainers eager to get back in front of audiences. And our sense is it'll be good for markets like Medicine Hat in terms of the variety of entertainers we might have an opportunity to host. So although we're still seeing a bit of market tentativeness there, we are seeing it ease a little bit.
And Medicine Hat is a growing city, and with growth comes controversy at times. There was a bit of controversy over the new property and with the old arena space as well. Are there redevelopment plans for the old arena?
So the land sale for the old arena site is pending. So while we wait for the new developer to meet certain conditions, as far as what will ultimately be at that location, new developments will be subject to zoning approvals that council will need to consider.
And can you talk a bit about how tourism is an important part of Medicine Hat's economy?
Yes, and before I do that, I want to recognize that we have an incredible destination marketing organization here, and they've done exceptional work to, even throughout COVID, make sure that people understood the value of the tourism opportunities we had right here when we were, all quarantined. We still had opportunities within Medicine Hat to do little staycations. And with summer 2022, we are back to in-person events. And later this summer, we're going to be having a Porch Fest, which is Medicine Hat's newest festival, and that's just in its second year. And the Mywasson Friendship Center is going to be doing 2-story tours. We have the upcoming Stampede and the return of a favorite summer event, the parade, which will be my first year participating in that, actually in the parade as mayor. I had the opportunity to participate in Red Cliff's parade earlier this year, and it was really fun. I sat with the Reeve of Cypress County and the mayor of Red Cliff in a really beautiful convertible. So it was a really good time. All of our tourism opportunities do bring opportunities for people to come and visit. We had as I mentioned, we had the Beat the Heat skateboarding competition. We had a hot air balloon festival, which brings people from all over to enjoy what Medicine Hat has to offer. And we also are having a seniors PGA championship this year, which is very exciting at our Connaught Golf Course.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, are there older parts of the city, maybe like Riverside, that could be a candidate to see new developments? Maybe it's not just residential areas, but also businesses or redeveloped schools?
Yeah, so one of the elements of our strategic plan is to focus on infill and brownfield development. So we want to make sure that as a city, we're not putting any additional barriers to infill development, and where possible, we're incentivizing. So we just recently passed last night, we just passed a tax incentive bylaw that one element is in there is for brownfield redevelopment. So that's very exciting. Certainly, we want to maximize the infrastructure that's already within the city, and the older, we have the Hill and the Flats and Riverside, and they're all such beautiful neighborhoods. And even just creating a secondary suite, or altering a beautiful old home into an office space or a work live situation, we want to make sure that we're using all of the levers that we have to kind of encourage that type of increased density and growth.
One of the stories we have covered in the past on Bridge City News was a problem with young men committing suicide in the Gas City. How has that been addressed?
Well, it's ongoing. That's a long-term solution. We have to, again, work with our community, bring all kinds of different groups with different ideas together to ensure that, we understand the root cause of that, and we're moving forward to address it. It's not something that's going to be solved overnight. It's a tragic situation, and it probably in part has to do with economic factors. COVID saw a lot of people in isolation. It's not one thing, and I think there's no one size fits all solution, but we will continue to work with our community partners, facilitating, empowering, bringing them together, because that's something that no community wants to see, and the ripple effect that has on families and neighbors is tremendous. And it's definitely something that this council is dedicated to, working and making sure that we're finding the right path forward to find solutions.
And then the other question I want to ask is about the transportation corridors in your area. Can you talk a bit about the twinning of Highway 3 and how that would benefit Medicine Hat area?
Yeah, so we have a Councillor Darren Hirsch, who sits on the Highway Twinning Committee, and we are actually retaining PricewaterhouseCoopers to complete a study to study the economic footprint on the twinning, the remaining sections of Highway 3 in Alberta. So that study will consist of two components, one being the estimation of the direct and indirect economic and tax footprint that twinning is expected to create. And the other part of the study consists of identifying and assessing wider socioeconomic impacts of twinning. So that study, the association expects a draft later this summer with a final report by fall. So when that comes up, I'd love to chat again and tell you the exact details of the economic and socioeconomic impacts.
And what about the airport? There's been a lot of development of the lands around the airport. How do you see this development helping your corner of the province?
Well, we are fortunate to have a municipal airport, and we definitely want to look to maximize its utilization. And obviously, that with any kind of commercial industrial development, that not only brings in tax revenue for the city, it provides jobs for local residents. And as much as possible, we can do secondary services for some of the industry we already have in Medicine Hat, and create that horizontal integration. But we're looking forward to building it out and providing opportunity for people in Medicine Hat and for people to move to Medicine Hat.
Mayor Clark, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much. Have a good afternoon.
That was Medicine Hat Mayor Lindsay Clark joining me today. I'm Naveen Day. On behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News, thanks for watching.